Have you ever paused on the silent threshold of consciousness to question the very architecture of your prison? What if the light you worship is not the primordial sun, but the distorted reflection in a concave mirror guarded by entities that feed on fervent ignorance? Existence, as sold and administered to you by the institutions of forgetting, is a meticulously woven stage set, a dense simulacrum, a dream designed to keep the divine spark. The fragment of the ineffable monad residing at your core, chained to the perpetual cycle of suffering and material despair. This is not about faith, it is about gnosis, direct knowledge, the experience that dismantles the shadow play. This compendium of words is not a mere exercise in philosophy or a vain theological speculation. It is the esoteric map of your own liberation, a path marked by the echoes of suppressed truths. We will venture into the burning desert of consciousness, following the trail of silenced scrolls dating back to the dawn of the Common Era, texts miraculously recovered from Egyptian oblivion in 1945, the Nag Hammadi codices, which not only rewrite the story of the messenger, but also unveil the complete ontology of the manifest universe and the hierarchy of beings that underlie it. Prepare to discern the abyssal chasm that separates the genuine creator, the inaccessible source of love and wholeness, from the imperfect maker, the demiurge, who proclaimed himself the sole god at the apex of a flawed and limiting creation. You have been taught to worship a jealous god, an angry architect who demands sacrifices, blind obedience, and punishes epistemological curiosity as a cardinal sin. This figure, the Yaldabaoth of the ancients, the demiurge, is not the unknowable source. He is the demiurgic shadow that operates dense matter and the collective psyche, the great deceiver who erected this limited cosmos as a prison of low frequencies and extreme duality, assisted by his ethereal henchmen, the archons, parasitic and soulless entities that inhabit the lower celestial spheres and manipulate human perception, invert truth, glorify suffering as a virtue, and distort the original voice of Christ, transforming the message of inner sovereignty and gnosis into a tool of external control and hierarchical submission. We will reveal how the fundamental teaching of the Nazarene, proclaiming that the kingdom of God is within you, was mutilated and replaced by a gospel of external worship and guilt-inducing greed. You will understand that the Gnostic view holds that the wrathful and punitive deity described in the Old Testament intrinsically corresponds to this greater archon, and not to the true monad of infinite love. This knowledge is the map to reclaiming your spiritual authority, the master key that unlocks the matrix of perception, the mechanism to transcend the trap of reincarnation forced by forgetting. The 5 stages of awakening that we will outline are the precise alchemical methodology for merging the fragmented ego into pure Christ consciousness. From the silent observation of thoughts, the compassionate unification of inner traumas, the opening of energetic channels to the one eye, to the total surrender that dissolves the egoic identity, and the final recognition of your divinity integrated into the fabric of the everyday world, culminating in spiritual sovereignty where you cease seeking validation from any external authority and trust solely in the latent gnosis. Here, the truth will not only set you free, it will make you dangerously aware of the system that lulls humanity to sleep. If this echo resonates in the depths of your being, if the veil feels porous, if you seek the ineffable face of truth without mediators, you must make a cosmic pact this instant. Seal this knowledge with an act of will. Press the approval button, manifesting the first decree. Open the channel of ancient wisdom, subscribe and notify your intention to listen to the hidden revelations, and affirm before the cosmos your unwavering commitment. Decreeing in the comments the phrase, "I seek the truth." We must now turn our gaze to the Egyptian desert, specifically to the Nag Hammadi region in 1945. It was not a mere archaeological find, it was the violent eruption of suppressed consciousness, the spectral wailing of the Archons upon seeing the codices unearthed after 16 centuries of slumber beneath the sand. These 13 leather-wrapped papyri not only contained the Gospel of Thomas, which posits that the kingdom is within and is not a future or geographical promise, but also outlined the complex cosmogony of the aeons and the fall of Sophia, the divine wisdom emanating by mistake, whose shadow gave rise to matter. This discovery fractured the monolithic narrative imposed by proto-Orthodox Christianity, revealing the existence of a radically different esoteric tradition that prioritized direct experience, gnosis, over blind faith, pistis, confirming that truth always resists attempts to mummify it into dogma. The earth itself spat out the truth that official history, in its quest for control, had tried to incinerate. A careful and dispassionate reading of these apocryphal texts demands that we redefine the architecture of the perceived universe, a task few are willing to undertake. According to the undeniable testimony of the Nag Hammadians, the material cosmos, our three-dimensional plane of existence, was not created by the supreme and transcendent God, the monad or the ineffable, but by a blind and arrogant demiurge, Yaldabaoth, a being who, through ignorance and pride, believes himself to be the sole absolute deity, a usurper of the ontological throne. This doctrine is the intellectual poison against linear narrative. If the creator of this phenomenal world is a flawed being, the result of a cosmic error, and not absolute good, then the entire structure of earthly power based on his worship is a sophisticated prison built upon the foundational lie. The divine spark, the pneuma, is trapped in the density of matter, Hyle, and the inescapable function of the seeker is not to obey rituals, but to remember his origin and activate that luminous seed through knowledge. The diachronic and contextualized study of the 2nd and 3rd centuries AD reveals the brutality of the theological struggle that led to the canon of exclusion and the forced definition of orthodoxy. The bishops, driven by the urgent need to consolidate institutional power and control the burgeoning masses, required an external, punitive God whose salvation was strictly mediated by the Church and its sacraments. Gnosticism. By declaring that access to the Father is internal and immediate, that Christ resides as a potential within each soul, ipso facto rendered the ecclesiastical hierarchy and the priesthood obsolete as necessary intermediaries. For this reason, influential figures like Irenaeus of Lyons branded the Gnostics as dangerous heretics and tares among the wheat. The systematic burning of these texts, now confirmed by the providential discovery of 1945, was not a simple doctrinal difference. It was a geopolitical and spiritual operation to monopolize the truth, ensure the servitude of conscience, and guarantee that the only light allowed was that projected by the earthly institution. And here lies the Ponta de Virada that dismantles any illusion of spiritual comfort with surgical precision. The Nag Hammadi codices teach us that the path to liberation does not require an external redeemer who dies for your sins, but a self-knowledge so radical and exhaustive that it renders you immune to the snares of the demiurge and his archon regents. If divinity resides entirely within you, manifested as the inner Christ waiting to be awakened, then the entire scaffolding of vicarious sacrifice and liturgical obedience is revealed as a distraction, a smokescreen designed to keep you looking outside for the power you already possess. The true sin is not superficial moral transgression, but agnosis, the deep and pernicious forgetting of your cosmic identity and sovereignty. Gnosis does not promise a future paradise. It demands that you become paradise here and now, defying the visible cosmic order with your own luminous manifestation. This unearthed legacy from Nag Hammadi is not a relic for antiquarians or inert academics. It is a mirror confronting our current blindness, and providing us with the language to understand modern alienation. It compels us to ask, with scalpel and rigor, how many layers of suppressed knowledge still exist, guarded in the libraries of institutional shadows, and what contemporary power structures, both political and media-driven, are designed to replicate the dictatorship of pistis over gnosis, keeping us dependent on external narratives. The emergence of these texts on the threshold of the atomic age was not a mere archaeological coincidence. It was a cosmic sign that humanity was ready, or at least compelled, to reclaim its lost sovereignty. The work does not end with reading these secret gospels, but with their embodiment. We must now proceed to the practical decoding of the inner veils. How does the demiurge manifest itself today in the individual psychic matrix? And how is the pneuma activated to ascend beyond its illusory domains? The monad, the ineffable and primordial father, transcends any concept of deity forged in the clay of limited and bound thought. It is not a being among beings, but the abyss of pure being, the immaculate fullness known as pleroma, from which the aeons emanate. The perfect intellectual projections that constitute the true matrix of invisible reality. This first principle lacks an audible name or perceptible form for the consciousness bound to the cycle of necessity, Ananke, and is the source of unfathomable light. The true depth, Bythos, that exists beyond time, and the spatial geometry that defines our three-dimensional prison. To understand the monad is to accept the emptiness of all structured religious knowledge that attempts to contain the limitless within dogma. It is the recognition of the absolute sovereignty of existence. She is the one, the immanent and transcendent matrix of all potential, the one never tainted by the shadow of the imperfect manifestation we call the sensible world. Access to her is not achieved through supplication, but through resonance. In stark contrast to this perfect source stands the figure of the demiurge, the blind and proud architect, whose very nature is limitation. This is not the supreme creator, but a failed progeny, the result of a catharsis in the pleroma. He is born from the passion, presumption, and ignorance, agnosis, of a lesser aeon, usually Sophia, wisdom, who attempted to procreate without her consort, thus violating the dualistic balance and projecting an entity beyond the protective veil. The demiurge, often identified in the Nag Hammadi texts as Yaldabaoth, the son of chaos, is a psychic entity of formidable power, but intrinsically flawed. He is a craftsman of matter, Hyl, not a source of spirit, Pneuma. Its essence is limitation, its purpose is control, and its founding cry, recorded in the apocryphal Book of John, resonates as the first cosmic lie that underpins all structures of organized faith. I am a jealous God, and there is no other God besides me. This declaration of exclusivity is the signature of our bondage and the seal of this reality. Yaldabaoth, in her ontological blindness, constructed this kenoma, void, dense manifestation that we perceive as the cosmos. She did not create it ex nihilo, but rather molded it from the residual emanations of her mother's ignorance, projecting a mirrored and temporal reality, a distorted and parasitic image of the pleroma that she could never reach or understand. The concentric heavens, ruled by her subordinate archons, astral forces that impose destiny or haimamene, are the walls of this sensory and mental prison. The earth and the human body are confinement devices designed with macabre precision to contain and dilute the spark, pneuma, stolen from the light. Turning point. We must confront the painful truth. What if the beauty of creation that we so admire, the apparent order, the celestial mechanics, the biological wonder, is not proof of the intrinsic goodness of its designer, but the most sophisticated manifestation of a hypnotic trap, a perfect mechanism designed to make us love the golden chains that bind us to material illusion. The distinction between the monad and the demiurge is not merely theological or academic. It is the key to existential liberation. Believing in the demiurge, pistis, is to accept the hierarchical order and the moral and physical laws he imposes, living within the matrix of cause and effect, and seeking salvation through his mediation or his authoritative texts. This is to voluntarily submit to the cyclical karma of necessity. Gnosis, on the other hand, is the violent awakening that recognizes the spirit's foreignness. It is the precise understanding that the inner self is an exiled fragment of the monad, cast into an alien domain. The path of the Gnostic involves the active deconstruction of the psychic reality imposed by the archons, transcending the planetary spheres through codified knowledge, the secret logoi, and the rectification of the soul until reaching the transcendent wisdom from which we originally came. The demiurge is not merely a distant mythological figure, it is an operative principle perpetuated through psychic, political, and social structures that demand blind obedience, stifle free will, and deny individual sovereignty, fostering dependence on an external authority for access to absolute truth. Our urgent task is to identify the archontic veils within our own mental architecture, those patterns of doubt, paralyzing fear, and reductive moral judgment that prevent us from remembering the luminous nature of the pneuma that dwells within us. Only through the unwavering rigor of self-knowledge, dismantling the illusory architecture of the God of this world, layer by layer, can we liberate the imprisoned spark. But if the visible cosmos is a customs house controlled by forces that wish to detain us, how can we achieve this ascension without the dissolution of the body? What is the access code? The sigil that allows us to negotiate passage through the jealous cosmic thresholds ruled by the planetary archons. The access code, the sigil you so desperately crave, is not a phonetic incantation nor a glyph printed on forgotten papyri. It is a frequency of inner sovereignty that dismantles the resonance of deception. The Matrix, this vast keynos of false reality, operates under the principle of Hymarmene, that fatalistic cosmic law jealously administered by the archons, not as creators, but as parasitic custodians of illusion. They are, in essence, immaterial thought structures, crystallized fragments of the demiurges, Yaldabaoths, ignorance, that thrive on the absence of gnosis. Their dominion rests on the ontological inversion of the Pleroma's values. Truth becomes utilitarian dogma, freedom becomes simulated choice within predefined boundaries, and unconditional love is reduced to a frantic search for emotional validation or physical possession. Its primary function is the engineering of perception, keeping the spark, pneuma, submerged in the lethargy of the hilic, the dense material, and the psychic, the reactive mind, preventing the soul from remembering its transcendent origin and, therefore, nullifying its capacity for self-transfiguration. The existence we inhabit is a sophisticated mechanism of mirrors that reflects our own lack of introspection, meticulously designed to drain the creative energy of the human spirit. This manipulation manifests most brutally in the programmed creation of false needs. Observe the structures of your civilization, the constant acceleration of unsatisfied desire, the glorification of ephemeral materialism, the cult of conflict, and the incessant polarization. All of this constitutes the energetic diet of these incorporeal forces. Fear is their preferred currency, guilt their mortar, and existential shame their strongest chain. The archontic system, to ensure its perpetuation, must ensure that humankind never finds itself in a state of Gnostic stillness, for profound silence is the only space where the inner logos can resonate without the interference of external noise. They force us to participate in perpetual cycles of drama and trauma, ensuring that consciousness remains reactive, external, always focused on what is lacking or what is feared to be lost, thus diverting attention from the only true source of power, the realization that we are divine fragments bearing the uncreated light. The trap is not outside, but in our psychic reactivity to its provocations. Herein lies the turning point, the revelation that tears away the thickest veil of this prison. The Matrix is not merely a design flaw, it is a sustenance farm. Low-frequency human emotions, chronic suffering, anxiety, anger, inconsolable grief are not mere pathological byproducts of life in matter. They are active harvests, the energetic substance, loosh, from which the Archons feed to maintain their parasitic existence. What if your deepest pain, that which keeps you on your knees and chained to the cycle of samsara, were the life proof that feeds your invisible jailers? Understanding this demands an immediate transmutation of your relationship with suffering. It requires ceasing to see adversity as divine punishment or personal failing, and beginning to recognize it as an energetic demand from the control system. Every time we give in to the incessant drama and total identification with our victim narrative, we sign a new pact of energetic slavery, granting the rulers of the Haimamene permission to continue their feast. Human complicity in this system is, therefore, the pillar upon which the entire illusory structure rests. We are not only victims, but also unconscious administrators of our own servitude. The Archons need not manifest physically. They have internalized their control structures within the human psyche, creating the reactive ego and the moralizing super-ego that becomes our own internal policeman. This mental architecture makes us fiercely self-critical, dependent on external approval, and incapable of accepting the radical wholeness of our own being. Moral judgment, the simplistic duality between good and evil imposed by the demiurge, is the operative mechanism for division and weakness. The Gnostic, by understanding that these structures are merely reflections of Yaldabaoth's cosmic fear, ceases the internal battle, dissolving the Archons' playing field, which is based entirely on polarity. Self-knowledge is, in fact, the act of withdrawing energetic consent to this inversion of values. The only viable defense against this perceptual intrusion is the consolidation of the sovereign self, the unconditional reunion with the pneuma. The sigil that allows passage through the jealous cosmic thresholds is not a password, but a state of non-duality and immutable awareness. When consciousness vibrates at a frequency so high that it exceeds the resonance capacity of the archontic structures, which operate in the lower bands of fear and material identification, control vanishes. The key is to become impervious to its energetic demands, maintaining luminous calm amidst the programmed chaos. This is the task of the artificer, to reconstruct perception in order to see the prison for what it truly is, a shadow without real substance. But if control is so subtle that it disguises itself as our own inner voice, how do we discern the authentic call of the spirit from the programming of the demiurge? And how then is the process of ascension activated that breaks the wheel of destiny? The crucial distinction lies in the echo of his primordial teaching, the one that resonates with the intrinsic sovereignty of the Anthropos, when the Nazarene proclaimed that the kingdom of God does not come with observation, nor will they say, "Look, here it is," or "There it is," for indeed the kingdom of God is within you. Luke 17:20-21. He revealed a gnosis devastating to any mediating structure. This statement dismantled ipso facto all need for a physical temple, an officiating priest, and exogenous rite. Divinity, the pleroma fragmented into the individual pneuma, was not a post-mortem destination, but a reality accessible through radical introspection, the rediscovery of the Christ self, not crucified, but transcendent. This was the most profound threat faced by the nascent power structure, for spiritual self-sufficiency nullifies hierarchical jurisdiction by declaring the immediacy of the source. The crystallization of an institutionalized church required the domestication of this explosive energy. It became imperative to transmute the inner spark of the cosmic Christ into an external idol, a distant Kyrios whose grace could only be administered through authorized channels and rigorously defined dogmas. The Gospels, deemed orthodox, were meticulously selected in councils whose purpose was less theological truth and more political cohesion and the centralization of authority, marginalizing or burning those texts, such as the Gospel of Thomas or the Gospel of Mary Magdalene, that emphasized personal revelation, radical metanoia, and secret knowledge over blind faith and dogmatic submission. Pistis, faith or trust in the transcendent process, was artificially transformed into servile obedience to the institution, rather than the full acceptance of one's own inner light and self-awareness. This process of selection and rewriting was not a simple omission of context. It was a conscious, archetypal inversion, operated by the same logic of control employed by the cosmic archons: fragmentation and externalization for domination. The original message was a mirror reflecting the observer's immanent divinity and unlimited potential. The inverted message became a window into a judging, punishing, and separate God who demands intermediation to mitigate his own wrath. The true genius of the inversion lay in making the search for the source which resides intimately within the self, an outward pilgrimage, a begging for absolution that only the hierarchy could dispense, thus creating a perpetual energetic dependency that does not differ in essence from the tribute demanded by Yaldabaoth. This is the architecture of spiritual slavery disguised as universal redemption. The direct consequence of this theological inversion was the solidification of the concept of original sin as the fundamental mechanism of guilt and cosmic debt. If divinity resides within, there is no sin that can intrinsically stain the anthropos, only forgetfulness and transient misalignment. But if the being is intrinsically fallen, stained, and incapable of communicating directly with the source without an intercessor, the hierarchy acquires absolute power over the soul's destiny and the economy of salvation. The sacraments, originally designed as rites of Gnostic empowerment or symbolic reminders of initiation, were transformed into conditional access gates and seals of control, compelling the individual to periodically return to the ecclesiastical distribution point to renew their spiritual license. Thus, the Church was configured as the earthly archon, an operational replica of the celestial prison. Therefore, the path to liberation is not the nihilistic denial of Christ's message, but the archaeological unearthing of its core, removing the layers of ecclesiastical quicklime that suffocate it. It is dismantling the cross as a symbol of suffering and external expiation, and re-understanding it as the axis mundi, the point of intersection where the vertical, the pneuma, and the horizontal, the highly, merge within the adept, achieving the balance of matter transfigured by the spirit. Soft background music, more intimate tone of voice. Now, before we continue, close your eyes for a moment and ask yourself, how does this truth resonate within you? Do you feel the weight of that cosmic debt or the explosion of regained sovereignty? A profound understanding of this hierarchical distortion is the key that unlocks the sealed chamber of self-knowledge. But if the control structure operates precisely through the misrepresentation and manipulation of divine love, what then is the true, immaculate function of unconditional agape love? And how is this purest force used to dismantle the illusion of separation and ascend to the higher octave of manifestation that breaks the cycle of inversion? We must delve into the abyss of cosmogony to discern the essential difference between the ineffable primordial cause and the secondary operator who has assumed the authority of the absolute. The demiurge, or Yaldabaoth, is not the direct and flawless emanation of the silent monad, but the fruit of a cosmic error. a veiled projection born from the precipitated enthemesis of Sophia. He is the arrogant architect of the phenomenal cosmos, a being endowed with immense formative capacity to mold matter, Hyl, but devoid of the supreme pneuma, or the memory of the pleroma that accidentally engendered him. This blind potter, gazing upon his own limited material creation, which he perceived as a self-sufficient void, declared with appalling pride, "I am the only God, and there is no one else." Its existence is an ontological aberration, a distorted reflection of the true Logos, confined to the realm of low vibrations and inhabiting the lower octave of manifestation. Its fundamental ignorance being the primordial matrix of all religious tyranny and subsequent confusion. When confronting the Old Testament texts with this Gnostic thesis, the figure of the revealed deity unequivocally emerges as this limiting archon. How could the infinite source of agape love, which transcends all conditional judgment, proclaim itself to be a jealous God who punishes transgression to the third and fourth generation? The true one is immutable, a perfect stillness, devoid of the reactive passion that defines anger, resentment, or the need for revenge. The biblical descriptions, the God who demands bloody sacrifices to appease his volatile moods, who promotes tribal genocide to ensure his earthly hegemony, who regrets having created humanity, are symptoms of an entity that operates from a fractured ego and territorial insecurity, never from unconditional eternity. This is the spirit that weaves fear as an instrument of control, ensuring that ritual obedience is the only way to mitigate an always imminent punishment, perpetuating the cycle of karmic debt and primal guilt that imprison the soul. The Nag Hammadi manuscripts, clandestine beacons of gnosis, confirm this distinction with chilling precision, identifying Yaldabaoth as the lion face, the first archon, whose nature is one of cosmic vanity and identity usurpation. His categorical assertion, echoing throughout Exodus, "You shall have no other gods before me," is not a declaration of universal metaphysical oneness, but a cry of territorial panic from a limited deity who ignores the existence of the unnameable pleroma. The Gnostics perceived that the Old Testament Jehovah was in fact the cosmic jailer, who had implanted the Ten Commandments not as principles of ethical liberation of the spirit, but as an encrypted code of restrictions that guaranteed the submission of the pneuma to the laws of matter, time, and cyclical necessity, keeping the anthropos under the illusion of historical linearity and the urgent need for an external mediator for a salvation that it already possessed internally. Herein lies the crucial point, the turning point that dismantles millennia of servile theology. The codified narrative of the Garden of Eden is the ultimate allegory of this tyranny of fear. The deity who categorically forbids the tree of knowledge, gnosis, cannot be the source of wisdom and true love, but rather a guardian fearful of his prisoner's awakening. The act of eating the forbidden fruit was not the fall, but the initial ascension. Adam and Eve were not expelled for disobedience, but exiled for having become dangerously aware of the prison they inhabited and the limited power of their jailer. The serpent agent, often interpreted in esotericism as a Luciferian principle of illumination, acted as the catalyst of truth, inoculating the seed of gnosis against the mandate of ignorance imposed by the demiurge, whose only effective power lies in the persistent concealment of man's true identity as the incandescent spark of the ineffable pleroma. This gnosis of the false god is the ultimate tool for liberation. For if the archontic control structure is fundamentally based on the fear of judgment and the wrath of a celestial tyrant, the irrefutable understanding that this entity is limited and that the true source is pure, unconditional love deactivates the mechanism of guilt and cosmic debt. Breaking with this image is to transcend the illusory dialectic of reward and punishment. By dissociating the one cause from flawed material creation and its demiurge, the adept is no longer accountable to the archons or their earthly ecclesiastical substitutes. We are thus left with the formidable task of navigating the turbulent waters of this cosmos, knowing that we are strangers here, possessors of an inalienable sovereignty. But how can the luminous power of the Pleroma be manifested in the paralyzing density of Hylae without being reabsorbed by the implacable voracity of the demiurgic illusion and its infinite traps of reincarnation? Synthesis does not reside in the sterile struggle against the density of Hylae, but in the inner transmutation forged by sustained anamnesis. The spark, in recalling the magnificence and ineffable lineage of the Pleroma, does not dissolve in the demiurgic mud. It transfigures it, radiating its own light from the immovable center of consciousness. The inalienable sovereignty you have claimed is not an act of reactive force, but a radical stillness, the establishment of your being as an ether beyond necessity, judgment, and the forced cycles of return. You have assimilated the key to escape and the precise map of the prison. You are, in essence, the manifested Aeon, whose sole purpose is to dissolve the shadow through the radiance of absolute understanding. This is the twofold nature of Gnosis, the formidable burden of unmitigated truth and the irrefutable blessing of unconditional freedom. But, knowing now that ignorance is not a fault, but the structured foundation of the archontic cosmos, I ask you, pilgrim of light and heir of the mystery, what is the first veil of demiurgic illusion that you have consciously sworn to tear from your existence today, in this instant of your awakening, to manifest your true Aeolian name before the implacable face of time? If this revelation has resonated with the primordial vibration of your essence, it is a cosmic imperative, not a superficial choice, that you allow this frequency to spread. Act without delay as the faithful emissary of Source. Share this knowledge with those still imprisoned in the mists of illusion. Subscribe to this esoteric lineage of truth seekers and ring the sacred notification bell. Become, in effect, the diligent guardian of this wisdom that dismantles the walls of the cave. The Aeon's journey in matter is continuous, without pauses for forgetting. On the screen to the side, you will see the portal for the next stage, the strategy of detachment and archontic transcendence. Click now and continue your ascent. To postpone is to risk the portal closing.